Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to our November Read Review. Today is the 4th of December 2022, and for November 2022, we're reading 491 Days, prisoner number 132369 by Winnie Madikizela Mandela. We've got Hlubi as our book champion for this month's read. So today we're just going to start with the check-in. Just introduce yourself, where you're based, if you're comfortable, what you do, and then we will also get to hear how you've experienced the book. I'll start on my side. I'm Muraro. I'm based in Poyando in Limpopo. I'm the founder of ImPower'd Woman Book Club. I'm a certified financial planner by profession. And I am so excited to have read this book and just want to start by appreciating and just showing gratitude to Hlubi for selecting this book and also championing it for us in this month. This is something that I would have never picked up or had an opportunity to read all my life. So I'm grateful for ImPower'd Woman Book Club. And in terms of how I'm feeling, it's a good day. It's a hot day in Limpopo, and I'm looking forward to the review. Over to you, Hlubi.
Thank you, Muraro. So this is Hlubi here. I am based in Makhanda, or formerly known as Grahamstown, which is in the Eastern Cape. I lecture accounting at the Rhodes University, so I'm in the accounting department. And yeah, I'm also really grateful that we had an opportunity to read this book. I think what inspired me last year, we had read a book by Michelle Obama. So I thought, we've read the book by the First Lady of the US. What can we learn from one of our first ladies here in South Africa? And I think that's what really inspired me to want to read this book, to hear the perspective of Miss Winnie Madikizela Mandela. So I'm also grateful that I've had the opportunity to read the book. And then in terms of how I'm doing well. It's been a restful weekend for me. It's a bit, it was raining this morning, so everything is still under the weather, but nevertheless, it's a good day. Yeah, and then I will hand over to, I see we only have Zandisile on the chat. Zandisile, I'll hand over to you.
Good day, everyone. I'm Zandisile. I'm in Northwest. I'm a teacher in profession, by profession, sorry. So, guys, I haven't read the book yet. I'm here just to take notes so that I can start. I've been busy. It's been hectic for me, and it's a good weather also here. It's sunny and it's a good day and a good weather. I am very much happy to be here and to learn more from you guys. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Zandisile. So just with this book, I have also read it, but I have not read it right up until the end. But I think I only have just maybe only a quarter left of the book. So I think I can give some good feedback about it. Just on my side, I think maybe if we can, Muraro, it's just me and you that have read. I see Wendy is back in. I don't know if you should maybe give Wendy a chance to introduce herself and check in before we start talking about or start reviewing the book. Wendy, are you ready to introduce yourself and maybe give us a check-in?
Oh yes, I'm on low shading, ladies. I don't know if you can hear me. I keep on losing you now and then. So I've tried to reconnect now via mobile data. I'm hoping that everything is clear. By the way, my name is Winnie Madikizela and I'm from actually I've been writing exams since October and November, so I didn't have enough time to get to read the book, but I just thought let me um, log in for the review and support the ladies and hear other participants. I can gain one or two. So yeah, that's it from my side.
All right, thanks, Wendy. Thanks for the introduction. I think we could hear most of your introduction. Just only cut off here and there, but we got most of it. So maybe we should go through with like what we enjoyed about the book and what we didn't enjoy about the book, and then maybe rate it based on how we usually do on our WhatsApp group, give it a rating, and then say why you would why you've given it that particular rating and who you would recommend it to. Yeah, so on my side, what I enjoyed about the book is that it really gave us insight into Winnie Mandela's stay in prison. It was not so much about her life, really, all of her life. It really was only about that 491 days. Here and there, they reflect, or rather, she reflects back on, events that happened before. But I think this book really is centered around only the 491 days. So it really gives us a picture of what it was like in those days when they were all fighting for freedom of the country during apartheid and what they actually went through in prison. And her stay was only 491 days, and it's very easy with her being married to Mr. Mandela, our first Black president. It's very easy to compare them, or it's difficult not to compare. So I'm also going to make a few comparisons as I go, because I was also making those comparisons when I was reading. I think what I found is that she was in much more severe conditions, I would say, even though it was a relatively shorter stay, 491 days compared to people who served like 10, 20, 27 years in prison. But that 491 days was a really intense period. The sort of treatment that she got, it's nothing that I could have imagined, or I wouldn't have known that information had I not read the book. So I really feel like it gave me insight into what our struggle heroes went through back in those days when they were in prison. It was not just you're being held and it's just for a few days. They really went through a lot of suffering during those detentions and interrogations and all of that. So I'm really grateful about knowing that piece of information, because I don't think it gets shown much even in media. I haven't watched the movie yet, so I'm actually keen to watch the movie. I told myself I would only watch it after having read the book, but I'm keen to see how they would portray it, because I'm thinking media and what we read in articles doesn't really give the full picture like what we got in this case. So that's what, for me, I really enjoyed the most about this book. And then what was challenging from my side was the fact that they have separated the book into two main chapters. And chapter one was challenging for me because it seemed to go on and on and on. It was very long. And it seemed like there were there was no order. I know that it's a diary and it got lost and some of the dates were not put through, but I felt like I was quite lost because I didn't know where we are. Like, are we 1 year down the detention period? Is this day one? I think my expectation was there's gonna be day one, and then the journal for the day, and then day two, the journal for the day three, the journal for the day. But it wasn't like that. It was all just mixed up. And there's probably a reason for that, but I don't know what that reason is. But when I was reading, I felt like I had to take moments to think, like, where are we? Is she talking about events that happened closer to her release date? Are we right in the beginning of this 491 days? So that was the only frustration for me. But I think I got around that eventually, and then reading the book was fine. Murano, can I give over to you to have your say?
Definitely. Thank you very much, Klubi. And as you said, for me, the book was challenging in terms of that as well, in terms of the order where you don't know where we are or something is repeating, and also the heaviness of some of the text in this book. I think I struggled a lot with chapter 14 because that's where it gets real and hectic. But I loved how other chapters were smaller and it could be 2-3 pages and then you are done and you move on to the next one. But I made a few notes in terms of the different chapters, where chapter 1, we learn about her arrest on the 12th of May in 1969. And she had 2 daughters, Zenani and Zenzi, and then aged 10 and 9. And then we also learn about the trial of the 22, or the state versus Samson Ndou and 21 others. And for me, when I was reading that, she also mentioned what she was reading, and it just shows that these people were also readers. And when she got arrested, she also shared about Lobile's speech, and that got me curious. So it's something that I've made a note that I'm going to read about, to say who was this particular person and what was their contribution to the struggle, such that that piece of literature or that piece of writing could be of such significance that one would even be arrested for being in possession of that. Not to say that that's what she was arrested for. And we learn about detention. I think when we hear the word detention, for us, we don't normally use that word, but as you watch TV and different series, it's just an act of someone being put aside in one room after school, and then other people can do what they're doing, but when now you're just left alone as punishment. So when she was sharing about that, they likened the experience of that with a boxing match. And she was saying that it was a struggle or it was a fight. We learn about the activity of undoing the sins of the blanket when one is in prison. And she shares that she enjoyed doing that. And I can imagine when there is nothing that you have to do, and then the only thing between you and that cell is just a blanket. So maybe I'm doing the same as a way of keeping self busy. And when she mentioned that her mornings were full of nothing, I just imagine just sitting and doing nothing. It can be exhausting and also frustrating at the same time. Yeah, when they were let go, 16 February 1970, she shares the details, and then they were then detained again. And I was just like, oh my word, this is going to be so hectic. Like, you think you're out and then they put you back in again. And she gives account of the first 2 weeks for re-detention, her state of mind having to beg for tablets, walking in her sleep, the nightmares, and then speaking aloud to her children, crying, and just thinking of when she was arrested, how the kids were crying, the loss of appetite, the reconstruction of the story of her life, the attacks, and then breathlessness. I think that book, or that chapter in terms of the state of her mind, chapter 4, was also heavy as well, because it's things that you wouldn't wish for anyone to experience. And when she shared about the time where she had decided she was going to commit suicide and wanting it to look like natural death, and her ending up being hospitalized because of that, and not eating, and also changing her mind to then decide, we're going to fight this instead of just giving up in that way. Yes, her passing on as Mandela's wife would have made a wave, but she wanted it to be something better than that. So she decided to fight back. Her health was highlighted as well. The bleeding, the blank mind, asking if that was brain damage, and also it being stated to be hyperventilation caused by acute tension and mental strain. The visits with the psychiatrist, the gynecologist, the interviews that she had to do, and also the time where they tried to sneak out Mandela and then giving up at the end, and then to say, what if this is something that is planned so that they can assassinate her husband? So I think that was just one of those things that would make one to think twice before deciding on anything, just to say what could be the planned action, or what could people want to pose this as. So I love that part and could relate to it in terms of not just thinking about what you want, but what other people want from the situation, and how they can play out the situation to be for their own benefit. Because there was also another time later on where she was asked to write a letter to ask for the doctor to discharge her from the hospital. And I was just thinking, how does that action benefit her? It will benefit the other parties should anything happen to her. And then they could say, it wasn't our decision, it was her decision to then get discharged. So this was a heavy content to go through, but it sets the scene and also shows what work was done in order for us to be where we are today. I've also watched the movie. It was very light compared to the book, and it just showed also the life after this 491 days when she was outside and the activities, and also showed a different picture of who this lady is and what she was involved in with the football club. But nonetheless, I would say for anyone that would want to know what contributions or what struggles people had to go through, or the struggles that Mama Winnie had to go through, then I would say it will be a good read. But I just want to highlight something before I hand over to anyone that would like to go next. On the epilogue, page 237, when she says, when Tata was arrested on 5 August 1962, I decided I will fight them to the last drop of my blood. I'm going to fight them, and I'm going to let them, I'm not going to let them break me. I will never let them break me. I was aware of the fact that suddenly I discovered, oh, I have no name now. Everything I did as Mandela's wife, I lost my individuality. Mandela's wife said this. Mandela's wife was arrested. It did not matter who the hell I was. It did not matter that I was a Madikizela. It did not matter that I was a human being. And it was understandable to the oppressor that whatever they did to Mandela's wife, she deserved it. So I thought, My goodness, I've grown up a princess in my own home. I come from the royal house of Wonderland, and suddenly I've lost my identity because of the struggle. I'm going to fix them. I will fight them and I will establish my own identity. I deliberately did that. I said I was not going to bask in his shadow and be known as Mandela's wife. They were going to know me as Winnie Madikizela. I fought for that. I said, I will not even bask in his politics. I'm going to form my own identity because I never did bask in his ideas. I had my own mind. I realized that, my goodness, if you're married, you lose your identity completely. I became a nobody. I had grown up walking tall in my home. I had been taught by my mother and my father that I must walk tall. I am me. I am Black. I must be proud of my Blackness. So when I was reading that part, what struck me was I will fight them and I will establish my own identity. And just to think how you mentioned, Chloe, when we're starting, that reading about Michelle Obama, the First Lady, and wanting to find out about one of our own First Ladies, because at times you just become Michelle Barack Obama's wife, you become Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who's Mandela's wife. But this shows about her own experience, her own identity. So yeah, that's where I will stop for now. And then later on, I'll come and share about my experiences of the letters. Thank you.
Thank you, Muraro, for that. I'll just go if anyone else wants to go. So thank you for that. I'm also now really looking forward to get to that part of the epilogue. But I can also concur with what you said in terms of Mama Winnie building her own identity deliberately, because I know that from even speaking with my father's very much into history and politics and economics and all of that. When he would speak about Winnie, he would get very emotional and be like, she was not just Nelson Mandela's wife. She was her own. She was a hero in her own right. So the fact that she was Tatu Mandela's wife is a completely separate issue, but she led the struggle all of those years when Nelson Mandela was in prison. She was very active and she played a very, very important role in the struggle. And one thing that I picked up, or let me say rather, that stood out the most for me in this book is how much she was so willing to fight for the rights of the people of South Africa, of Black people of South Africa, even if it meant that she had to sacrifice her own family time with her own children. And it was very clear that she even made them understand that, this might be permanent. I might be even be in prison for much longer, and you need to be prepared for that. That's something that she didn't shy away from. She knew the risks, but she took the chances anyway. And that also stood out for me when I think there was a time when she was also given an opportunity to go overseas with the kids, have them study abroad. Like how many of the other people went into exile, but she didn't take that offer. She said no, she's going to stay in South Africa and fight the fight with her people. She's not going to be away and let it be other people's problem. She's going to be part of the solution. So that really stood out for me. And I was even thinking of, how easy it is for people to say they would die for something that they believe in. Even parents, they would say, I would die for my children. But are you willing to live for that ideal? If you say, I'm willing to die for my children, are you willing to live for them? Because it looks like to me there's actually greater honor in living for something rather than dying for it. And I think that also became clear to her when she was trying to commit suicide by making it look natural. But eventually it hit her that she's got to be part of the solution. So even though dying might be the easy way out, but actually living, and even if it means that she's going to suffer and suffer many years in that condition, it became something that she was willing to do no matter how difficult it would be. So yeah, that's something that really that stood out for me, just how much she was willing to fight for the country and liberation, even though it meant that now she could lose a lot of things. So yeah. Before I move on, can I hand over to the next to anyone else that might have anything to add?
Hi, ladies.
And
Thank you so much for the feedback. I didn't read the book. I watched the movie, and yeah, I really loved it. It was actually the first time that I saw it, and after watching it, I was speaking to my father because he lived in the same area during that time. I think was just a teenager by then, but he was part of most of the things that were happening in the area. So I really loved how, speaking to him and comparing to what was happening in the movie, it just gelled, together. And for me, what stood out in the book, or, in the whole thing, was her trying to find her identity. It's quite easy to get lost, in being someone's wife, being someone's mother, or any other role, that one can find themselves in. And really, I loved her at the end of the day. Even now, when I remember her, I don't really remember Mama Winnie as Mandela's wife. I remember her as Winnie Madikizela Mandela. That Madikizela always stands out for me. And now, thinking of how I perceived her before and watching the movie, really understanding where she came from, the things that happened to her, the things that she did. Yeah, it was really an eye opener. She was a very strong woman and very bold, willing to stand for what she believed in, no matter what, which is very commendable. I mean, not a lot of people could do what she did, even though one might be given a chance. So yeah, the part about her finding her identity and fighting for it, despite of the fact that she's Mandela's wife, she's whoever's mother, she's this and that. Yeah, that was what really stood out for me. Thank you so much. Thank you, I'm done.
All right, thanks, Bali. Then in terms of the ratings, what would you guys rate the book as? I'm just interested. I already have my own rating, but I'm just interested first in hearing what out of 5 stars, what would you rate the book as, and why is that?
3.5. And I'm rating it at 3.5 because I enjoyed reading this content because it's content that I wouldn't have been exposed to. You just hear of Mama Winnie, but not knowing what she went through, and also what this title, Mama Winnie, cost her. I remember in one of her letters when she was saying, in marrying you, I was marrying the struggle of my people. And I was just like, yo, this woman. And yeah, and then the other ratings would be because of the order of the book itself. So not knowing whether we are on 1970 or we're still in 69, it brought a bit of confusion, but I enjoyed the read. Thank you.
From my side, I also rated it 3.5. So I start with a 5 and then I just usually minus. So I was a minus 0.5, also because of that same reason of the order in that first part, that part 1 of the book all of that confusion. Yeah, so that was the reason for the minusing of the 0.5 stars. And then I minused also 1 star because when it gets to the parts about the letters, I felt that it focused, there were too many of letters from Mr. Nelson Mandela. So I felt that I would have really loved to hear more of Winnie's voice more than Mandela's voice. And there were a lot of letters from Datu Mandela to other people, which, yes, even though they were related to that stay, that 491 days that she was in prison, but they were really too much, I felt, for me. So I would have really loved to see more of Mama Winnie's writing, and yeah, see more of her letters rather, or see more of her views. So I really felt like when we got to the letters, we sort of lost Mama Winnie's voice a bit, and that's what I was really looking forward to about the book. So for me, I think that was a big thing. When we got to that second part of the book, I just felt that, yeah, the letters by Datu Mandela were too much. But also, that said, I really could see that they were smart people and they actually read a lot. So when I would read that Nelson Mandela's letter, I would feel that it's very different from Mama Winnie's letter. So, and you could see their struggles and how they write. So with Mama Winnie, you could see that her letters are by someone who's really went through a lot in life, like psychologically, mentally, and you could see that in her writing. And with Datu Mandela's letters, they were just so beautiful. The English is so beautiful. And even he admits that during the first 8 years of prison, he read more books than he ever did in his entire life before he was in prison. And you could see that all of that literature that he had been reading really comes through in how beautifully he writes. So I also really enjoyed reading Datu Mandela's letters as well, as much as I also enjoyed Winnie's letters as well. But I really would have loved to see more from Mama Winnie. I really wish that they had put more in the book than what they did in terms of Datu Mandela's letters. So yeah, that's my rating. I don't know, Mbali, did you have a rating? Does anyone else have a rating for the book? So both me and Mulalo have given it a 3.5 stars, and we've said why. I know Zandisile, you said you haven't read, so maybe you can't give a rating. But Mbali, did you maybe read? Do you have any rating for us?
Oh, well, I watched the movie and I got some real life experience, from someone who was there. So no, the book itself, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say the movie, in terms of now this review of the book, do you say they add up, or does it seem like are there maybe things missing from the movie?
From what my father told me.
Or from our review of the book today and the movie, and also what your father told you, does it all add up?
Yeah, no, it does. You guys covered, from everything that I heard, you covered everything. Yeah, I think everything was covered. I also just think that, they could have put more stuff about her, the things that she did herself, more than, I felt like it had more of Mandela, that they could have put less in there. But other than that, I think it covered, the basics about her life. Yeah.
Oh, all right, that's great. Yes, I really enjoyed. I mean, I really enjoyed reading both letters from herself and from Tatu Mandela, but I just wish that there was more. I still feel like I don't know her as much as I was hoping for, even though the book did give me a lot. But maybe I must read another book by her that will just tell me more about this woman. Muraro, any further comments from your side?
Okay, so from our side, when it comes to the letters, it's similar to what you shared about more letters being about Mandela and not the voices of Winnie herself. But I think the part of what his letters was addressing was the situations that they were facing, and also wanting to find out how the kids are doing, selecting a guardian for the kids, and also what's going to happen to their property when both of them are in hospital. You're not in hospital, are in prison. And then with that said, yeah, there was just some of the things that I noted here and there on some of the letters, but I love how at times they would say, Mandela would say to Winnie that she's undisciplined. But that just shows that when you're passionate about something, you are willing to behave in a way that can not seem normal, but something that will show the fire that you have. Because she was described by Mandela in one of the letters to the kids to say that we have a brave and determined mommy who loves her people with all her heart. And you mentioned about the scholarship that she had to let go of so that she chooses to be with her people. And then she was just sharing that you cannot fully appreciate the true value of some of the things before, or if you're not looking at them through prison eyes, because if the way you look at things changes once you have been to prison. Or yeah, so still in that, when they heard about the death of the son, it was said that Mandela was not able to go attend that. He was also not able to go and attend his mom's funeral, though he likens that to another instance where someone was provided the opportunity to go with the wife when she was not feeling well and they had to travel for her to get medical attention. But on matters that are far beyond sickness and relating to death, they were not willing to give him that particular liberation or mercy for him to go and do the last respect for his loved ones. I think the letters just take us through the journey. There was a lot of people that Mandela was writing to, so it becomes a bit more confusing to say, who's this person? What is their relevance? And also, I loved how some of the names are names you just see on streets. When you say Bram Fisher, you don't know that this was an advocate or this was a lawyer that was representing them in Rivonia trial. So now it brings curiosity to some of the names that you see on the streets in different cities, different towns, to say, who are these people? What have they done? It sparks curiosity and makes you want to read and learn more about them and their contribution to the struggle and where we are today. So that's my take on the letters. Thank you.
Thanks, Muraro. Also on the letters, I think the key learning from it is that maybe us as young people, we don't have a lot of context about what really happened when back in the apartheid times when people were taken to prison. But I think it really showed us that it was very complicated. It was not just simply you're going away to be put away. You had to think about now what happens to the children, who's paying for their school fees, how is life continuing for your family, especially for the children. I think the two daughters of Winnie Mandela, they were two, and the other one was less than two, because when Winnie was arrested, Mandela had already been in prison for 8 years. I think, yes, they were aged 2 and 3 years when Nelson Mandela was arrested, and he could not see them because they were minors. So for a period of 8 years, we know that he had not seen his kids, and you just hearing from letters with how they are, what their personalities are, how they're behaving, what do they think about you, how do they feel about you not being at home. And I also put myself in Mama Winnie's shoes as a parent, that if you are taken away on a random night while you're sleeping and you end up being in prison for 491 days, having not made any arrangements with what is going to happen with your kids on that very same night that you're being arrested. And even as you're taken, who are they being left with? I mean, who cares for them? Who takes them to school? What do they eat? And you start thinking about those people that are taking care of them. Are they not getting tired? Is this not going on for too long? I think sometimes people's patience also runs out. So I think it also got very difficult to know. And I think the one son, he was also supposed to go to university. He ended up not going. And as a parent, being so vested in your child's education and future, you can't intervene. You don't know what the reasons are, why they're not progressing with life, and what's actually going on. So I think, the letters really painted the bleak picture of what it was like being in prison, especially when both adults, when both the mother and the father are in prison, with what happens with the kids. And I think Dr. Mandela used the term that it's a family disaster, or it became a family disaster when Mama Winnie was arrested. So that, I think, that also is the reason that prompted so many letters by Dr. Nelson Mandela to write to the lawyers, to write to different parts of the family, to make sure that there's someone picking up the kids from boarding school, who are they staying with over the holidays. And even money, like when you're in prison, you also need money. You need fresh food, you need money for toiletries. And I also found out that Mandela was studying at the time, because I was at some point impressed that he was asking for 100 rand to pay for his school fees. I think he was
I
also
saw
doing
that.
some degree, yes. And I was shocked that it was, school fees were only 100 rand. But I suppose it's many years later, time value of money has gotta be put into account. But yeah, I think the letters really gave us a picture that it's not just, you're simply going away. It means really a lot for the people that are around you, and it also meant a lot for the people of the country as well, not only to the immediate family. So I think that is why the government, the apartheid government, really used taking people, or taking Black people to prison, as one of the greatest tool of executing the oppression. Because from reading this book, I can see the effects that going to prison really has, not only for your immediate family, but also for the great people whose lives you affect as well. So yeah, I also appreciated the letters. Can I give
Yeah.
over to the next person?
Can I just add something on that with regards to them in the letter stating that there's nothing that we can do given the situation? When I was reading that as a parent, I was just thinking we take things for granted, and also give up the power that we have in deciding what should happen for our kids. And then there's people that are either in prison or they're in situations where they cannot even really intervene or take part in terms of what is happening on their kids' life. So it is critical that given the opportunity or us being able to do things for our kids, we do it and not just leave things to chance. Thank you.
I've just made a connection now while you were speaking. You know, one of Dr. Nelson Mandela's quotes about education. What is it? Education is the key to a future, or something like that. As a popular quote, but it really comes through in the book as well of how much he really valued education. At some point in the letters, you could really see how stressed out he was about the one son not eventually going to university as he was planned. He made contacts with people that were in the universities to put him through and pay the fees for him and accept the late application, even though he didn't accept. Even though he was in prison, he was really doing as much as he could to make sure that he goes to university. And he even stressed for the two young girls, Zeni and Zenani, when they had to choose subjects. I think they were going into grade 10 or something, and they had to choose subjects. So he made it a point that certain people, I can't remember who, but they should be involved in assisting them to choose their subjects, so that to rather choose people to help them with the subject so that they get into the right career paths according to what they want. And I was just reflecting that, you know, as parents in this day and age, it seems to me like that's a decision that we just let, you know, children to do by themselves. If I think of myself, I told my parents which subjects I want to do. There wasn't a lot of intervention from them to say, no, you should do this or you should do that, or, you know, deliberate guidance on how to actually go about this big decision. But I could see that with them, Dadu Mandela and Mama Winnie, that's something that they thought about even when they are in prison, and they made sure that these children really get guidance in terms of these subject choices. So it really just resonated with that popular quote that education is the key to your future. That's not, I can see that's not something that he just said. It's something that he really believed in, and something that he really lived in his own life. So yeah, that's just a connection that I've just made now while we were talking. Does anyone else have any closing comments? If there's no closing comments, are we happy to conclude the review? I thought it was going to be short since we only have such few people that have dialed in, but I'm really shocked that it's already 4 p.m. now. But yeah, I've really enjoyed reading this book, and I've really enjoyed sharing thoughts with all of you on how you found it, as well as the movie. I'm looking forward to getting to the part of the epilogue and also watching the movie.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. On my side, yeah, I really enjoyed also discussing about the book. And one thing that I saw at the end, I think the epilogue, it's like the highlight of this book, where she was mentioning that fighting for freedom in the ANC was the greatest thing in your life. And another thing about right and wrong and using prison as as a place where people go when they did wrong, and how raising kids at that time, when you say your father is in prison, now you can't use right and wrong, was another thing that I was like, yo, it must have been difficult, because you say those fathers that are in prison are fighting for the people, and then the child is asking, why is Ubaba one next door not in prison? Isn't this cause worth fighting for on their side. But all in all, just the experience, what she had to go through, it's something that makes me ask myself a question: what will be my legacy? What is the thing that I am wanting to fight for? Or if there was a book that is written later on about my life, what will that entail? And what is it that I am giving up in order to ensure that the broader society or more of our people get to benefit? So I really enjoyed the book, and I do appreciate the time that we took in order to do this particular review. Thank you.
Thanks, Moraro. Zandile and Bali, any closing remarks from your side?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the beautiful reviews, ladies.
Thank you, Bali.
I see
Thank
your
you so
comment.
much, ladies, for sharing your views about the book. There's definitely no doubt that I will enjoy it. Thank you so much for this. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much, ladies. I think, Moraro, we are ready to end the meeting.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, ladies,
All right.
and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.